Hi. So I love fairy tales from all over the world. And some really good fairy tales come from Russia. And what I have right here is a story called The Sea King by Jane Yolen and Shulamith Oppenheim. Jane Yolen does a lot of folklore from all over the world. And this one takes a whole bunch of different Russian fairy tales and mushes them all into one story that's kind of bananas. I love this book. So, we are going to enjoy a couple of fairy tales from Russia. This is The Sea King. And in Russian folklore, the name of the king of the sea was the Morkoi Tsar. Tsar is what they would call the ruler of Russia at the time. So, in case I go saying that term, now you know what it's all about. Once, in a certain land, in a certain kingdom, there was a king who was out shooting, and he aimed at an eagle. "Do not shoot me," cried the eagle. "Some day I shall be useful to you." So the king relented, and he took the eagle back to his palace. There the eagle ate and ate and ate some more until there was nothing left in the kingdom. No cattle, grain, fruits, or fish. "How is this useful to me?" asked the worried king. "Climb on my back," said the eagle, "and you shall see." So the king climbed on the eagle's back, and away they flew over the ocean. Then 3 times the eagle dropped the king into the water, and 3 times plucked him from the waves. "Now, my king, you know the fear of death, just as I did," said the eagle, and the king agreed. They flew on until they came upon a boat, and the eagle set the king down upon it, saying, "Now I leave you, sire. But on the boat you will find 2 coffers, one green and one red. Do not open them until you are home. Open the red one in the back garden, and the green in the front garden." And away the eagle flew, leaving the king alone on the boat. Before long, the king came to a certain island. On going ashore, his curiosity overcame him, and he opened the red coffer. Out came so many cows, there was hardly any room on the little island for all of them. "How shall I gather this herd together?" the king wondered aloud. Then suddenly he beheld a man rising up out of the water. And he had a fish tail instead of legs, and there was a crown upon his head. "I shall gather your herd," said the seaman, "and put them back into the red coffer, but only on one condition." "Name it," said the king. "I am the Morkoi Tsar, the king of the sea. Give me that which you do not know is in your house." The king thought, "I know everything that's in my house." And so he agreed. Then the Morkoi Tsar did as he had promised, and the king sailed happily for home. What should he learn upon returning home? His wife had given birth to a son. He wept as he held the child, fearing to tell his wife the truth. All unknowing, he had promised the boy to the Sea King. But then he smiled, thinking, "This Morkoi Tsar doesn't know where I live." So having convinced himself that his son was safe, the king went out into the back garden and opened the red coffer. Out came cattle and sheep and goats beyond counting. And then he went into the front garden and opened the green coffer, and there appeared flowers and fruits of every size and hue. The king was in such rapture at the return of all the eagle had eaten, and more, that he promptly forgot the promise that he had made to the Sea King. Now years passed, but promises do not. One day, The king was walking by the river, and suddenly out of the water came the very same seaman who said, "You have forgotten your debt to the Morkoi Tsar. Now you must pay." What could the king do? He went back and told the queen and the prince the truth, and they wept together. But at last the prince said, "Mother, father, you have always told me to tell the truth. You have always cautioned me to keep my word." And so the prince walked down to the water's edge and waited. He waited and waited and waited some more. When nothing appeared at the water's edge, he tired of waiting, and he turned and walked to the woods. Soon he found a little hut that stood on spindly chicken feet, and in that hut, though he did not know it, lived Baba Yaga, the witch. And when she heard him, she came out of the hut and smiled at him with her iron teeth. The prince spoke to her politely, as his parents had taught him to behave, which was lucky. Otherwise, she would have eaten him. "Go back to the seashore, my son," she said. "There 12 spoonbill birds will turn into 12 lovely maidens bathing. Take the dress of the eldest, then you will be ready to go to the Morkoi Tsar." "Thank you, grandmother," said the prince, again politely. This was lucky, as she still would have eaten him. So the prince went back to the shore and did as Baba Yaga had instructed. Once he had a hold of her dress, the eldest maiden could not fly away. "Please return what you have taken," she said, "and I shall be useful to you." He did so, but asked, "Pray, tell me your name." "My name is Vasilisa the Wise," she said, and then she put on her dress, turned into a spoonbill, and flew after her sisters towards the setting sun. Now the prince set off to find the Morkoi Tsar, swimming deeper and deeper into the water, until at last he came to a great palace with walls of shimmering crystal. Swimming in front was the very same sea king that his father had met so long ago. "I have been waiting for you," said the Morkoi Tsar. "But as your father was slow in sending you to me, you must now build me a crystal bridge in one night, or else you will lose your head." The prince sat down in front of the Sea King's palace and wept, because of course he could do no such thing. "Alas, my mother! Alas, my father!" he cried. "I shall see you no more." And along came Vasilisa, the girl who had been the spoonbill. "Go to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." And she sang him to sleep, and when he was snoring, gave a mighty whistle. It's not very mighty, but it's the best I can do. From everywhere swam fish-tailed workmen to do her bidding, and the bridge was completed before sunrise. When Vasilisa woke the prince, who was greatly relieved, she handed him a broom, and he swept the bridge clean. "Bravo!" said the Morkoi Tsar. "But there's yet another task. I desire a garden by tomorrow, tall trees flowering with ripe fruits, and birds flying everywhere. Otherwise, you will lose your head." The prince sat in front of the Sea King's palace and wept, because of course he could not do any such thing. "Alas, my mother! Alas, my father!" he cried. "I shall see you no more." Along came Vasilisa once again. "Go to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." She sang him to sleep, and when he was snoring, gave a mighty whistle. From everywhere came fish-tailed gardeners to do her bidding, and by morning there was a garden to gladden the heart of any sea king. And when the Morkoi Tsar saw the garden, he smiled. "You have done well twice," said the Morkoi Tsar, "and I would be glad to have you as my son-in-law. Choose a bride from my 12 daughters. But beware, they all look alike. If you choose the same girl 3 times, she will be your wife. But if you mistake one for another, I will have your head." "Do not worry," Vasilisa whispered to the prince. "I will marry you. So listen carefully. The first time I shall wave a handkerchief. The second time I shall adjust my dress. The third time a fly shall settle on my head." The prince nodded. Then out came the 12 sisters, dressed alike in red dresses with white embroidery. Their headdresses were exactly the same as well. They were all tall and strong-boned, with eyes the color of the sea. "Choose," said the Morkoi Tsar. The prince looked carefully, and, as he did, one of the princesses waved a handkerchief. "That one," he said. The Sea King agreed. "Again." This time, the 12 princesses danced around and around until they finally came to a halt. They looked as alike as herrings on a plate, but one of them pulled at the skirt on her dress. "That one," said the prince. The Morkoi Tsar smiled. "Again," he said. And this time, when the 12 princesses shifted around, the prince was turned around as well. And when they had all stopped, the Sea King said, "No one is to move." All of the princesses stood still, but a little fly flew round and about one of the princesses and landed upon her headdress. "That one," said the prince, pointing. The Sea King smiled, and Vasilisa the Wise smiled, and the prince smiled as well. So the prince and Vasilisa the Wise were married, and, after their fathers died, they ruled both land and sea for the rest of their days. The end. Well, that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed your stories, however many you watched, and yeah, I hope to see you around soon. Enjoy the rest of your reading week. Thanks again. Bye-bye.